My name is Maya Sanders. I'm 34 years old, and this is the story of how losing my job became the best thing that ever happened to me. 3 years ago, I worked at Brightline Marketing as a senior account manager. The pay was good, the benefits were great, and on paper it looked like my dream job. But looks can be deceiving. Please, if you enjoy listening to revenge stories, then please subscribe to this channel for daily revenge stories coming your way. Enjoy listening. I still remember my first day. The office was beautiful. Open floor plan, plants everywhere, and a coffee bar that would make any barista jealous. The company website boasted about their family culture and supportive environment. They even won awards for being a top workplace in the city. But it didn't take long to see the cracks in the perfect picture. My boss, Victoria Reynolds, was the kind of woman other women are supposed to admire. She had the corner office, the designer clothes, and a reputation for getting things done. In our first meeting, she told me, "I expect excellence, Maya. Mediocrity is not tolerated here." I nodded eagerly, excited for the challenge. I didn't know then that excellence meant answering emails at midnight. It meant canceled weekends and missed birthday parties. It meant watching coworkers cry in bathroom stalls. The first red flag appeared during my second week. My colleague Jane missed a deadline because her son had been rushed to the hospital with a broken arm. "Family emergencies are not our problem," Victoria said in the team meeting, not even looking at Jane. "We all have personal lives. It's about priorities." Jane quit 3 weeks later. Nobody seemed surprised. Then there was the incident with Mark from the design team. He presented a campaign concept that Victoria didn't like. Instead of offering feedback, she laughed and said, "Did you create this in your sleep? This is why we're losing clients." Mark's face turned red. Nobody spoke up. The meeting continued as if nothing had happened. That was the culture. Public humiliation disguised as feedback, impossible deadlines called opportunities to excel, and a constant fear that you might be the next target. The worst part, everyone pretended it was normal. People would say things like, "That's just Victoria being Victoria," or, "Tough environments create strong professionals." For months I kept my head down. I worked 60-hour weeks. I skipped lunch to finish projects. I answered emails at 2 a.m. I thought if I worked hard enough I could rise above the toxic environment. But something was happening to me. My hair started falling out. I developed stomach problems. I couldn't sleep. My boyfriend at the time said I had become a different person. Always anxious, always checking my phone, never present. The breaking point came on a Tuesday in April. We had a team meeting to discuss why we had lost a major client. Victoria was on a rampage. "This is unacceptable," she said, pacing the room. "Someone needs to take responsibility." She pointed at my coworker Alex, who had joined just 3 months ago. "You were the lead contact. What did you do wrong?" Alex started explaining that the client had budget cuts, but Victoria cut him off. "Excuses," she said. "Always excuses. This is why we're failing." Alex looked like he might cry. He had worked 80 hours the previous week trying to save that account. I knew he had missed his daughter's recital to take a client call. Something inside me snapped. "It's not Alex's fault," I said. My voice sounded strange in my ears. Too loud, too confident. Victoria turned to me surprised. Nobody interrupted her meetings. "Excuse me. It's not Alex's fault," I repeated. "And it's not fair to blame him." The room went silent. I could hear the air conditioning humming. "We all know the real problem here," I continued, my heart pounding in my chest. "It's the culture. People are overworked, underappreciated, and afraid to make mistakes. We've lost 5 team members in 3 months. Everyone is doing the job of 2 people. We're all exhausted." Victoria's face hardened. "If you find the environment too challenging, Maya, perhaps this isn't the place for you." "It's not about being challenged," I said. "It's about being respected. It's about sustainable expectations. It's about not treating people like they're disposable." I looked around the room. Some colleagues stared at the floor. Others looked at me with wide eyes. A few nodded slightly. "This isn't working," I said. "And we all know it. We need change." Victoria smiled. that tight, professional smile that never reaches the eyes. "Thank you for your input," she said. Meeting adjourned. Maya, my office. Now. I knew what was coming as I followed her down the hallway. My hands were shaking, but strangely I felt calmer than I had in months. In her office she didn't waste time. "That was completely inappropriate," she said. "You undermined my authority in front of the entire team." "I spoke the truth," I replied. "The truth." She laughed. "The truth is, this is business, not a therapy session. If people can't handle pressure, they should find another career." "Toxicity isn't pressure," I said. "What's happening here isn't normal." She leaned back in her chair, studying me. I had high hopes for you, Maya. But it seems you're too difficult. You're not a good fit for our culture." There was difficult. The label women get when they don't smile and agree. "I'll make this simple," she continued. "You have two options. You can apologize to me and the team for your outburst and commit to being a team player, or you can clean out your desk today." I thought about all the nights I'd worked until my eyes burned. All the times I'd swallowed my opinions. All the casual cruelty I'd witnessed and said nothing. "I'll get my things," I said. 2 hours later, I was sitting in my apartment with a box of desk plants and family photos, officially unemployed for the first time since college. My hands still shook as I called my mom. "They fired me," I said when she answered. "Oh, honey," she replied. "What happened?" I told her everything. The meeting. The confrontation. My sudden unemployment. "Maybe I was stupid," I said. "I should have just kept quiet until I found another job." "Maya," my mom said firmly, "I raised you to stand up for what's right even when it's hard. Especially when it's hard. I'm proud of you." I cried then, big ugly tears of relief, fear, and exhaustion. That night I couldn't sleep. I kept replaying the meeting in my head, thinking of better things I could have said. Around 3 a.m. I opened my laptop and started typing. I wrote about everything. The toxic culture, the normalization of overwork, the way power was abused. I wrote about how it made me feel and what it did to my health. I wrote about the colleagues who quit and the ones who stayed but lost their spark. When the sun came up, I had 10 messy pages. I didn't know what to do with them, so I posted parts on my rarely used LinkedIn profile. I didn't name the company or Victoria. I just shared my experience and ended with a question. When did we decide this was normal? I closed my laptop and finally fell asleep. When I woke up 5 hours later, my post had over 1,000 views. Comments were pouring in from people sharing similar stories. By evening, it had been shared hundreds of times. "You put into words what I've been feeling for years," one comment read. "I thought I was the only one," said another. A college friend who worked in HR called me. "Maya, you've struck a nerve. People are hungry for this conversation. You should keep going." "Keep going how?" I asked. "I don't know. A blog? A podcast? People need to hear this." A podcast. The idea took root. I had no experience, no equipment, no plan. But I had time, being unemployed will do that, and a story to tell. I ordered a cheap microphone online and watched YouTube tutorials on podcast production. I cleaned out my closet to create a makeshift recording studio. Blankets make good sound dampeners, it turns out. I made a list of topics I wanted to discuss. Workplace boundaries, recognizing toxic behavior, the courage to speak up. 2 weeks after losing my job, I recorded the first episode of Women Who Won't Be Silent. Just me, talking into a microphone about my experience and why workplace culture matters. I was terrified. My voice shook at the beginning. I said, too much. The audio quality was far from professional. But it was real. It was honest. And as it turns out, that's what people were craving. I uploaded it to podcast platforms with low expectations. Maybe my friends would listen. Maybe a few strangers would stumble across it. 3 days later, it had been downloaded 5,000 times. The comments flooded in. I listened on my commute and cried in my car because I thought I was alone. Just gave my 2 weeks notice after listening to this. Life is too short. Please make more episodes. We need this. So I did. I interviewed friends who had similar experiences. I researched workplace psychology. I talked about gaslighting, burnout, and setting boundaries. I shared techniques for speaking up safely and recognizing when it's time to leave. By the fifth episode, a small wellness company reached out about sponsoring the show. It wasn't much money, but it was something. Then a women's professional network asked me to speak at their monthly meeting. 6 months after being fired, I had a growing podcast, a small but steady income from sponsors, and speaking engagements lined up through the end of the year. My LinkedIn following grew from a few hundred to over 50,000. The most surprising development? Former Brightline employees started contacting me. First one, then 3, then a dozen. They shared their stories, some worse than mine. Many had left the company, suffering from anxiety, depression, and shattered confidence. "Your podcast is helping me realize it wasn't my fault," wrote my former colleague Alex. "I thought I wasn't good enough. Now I see the environment was the problem." A year into my podcast journey, I got an email from a reporter at Business Weekly. They were doing an investigation into toxic workplace cultures and had heard about my story. Would I be willing to speak on record? I hesitated. I had been careful not to name Brightline or Victoria in my content. Part of me was still afraid of consequences. Lawsuits, reputation damage, burning bridges. But another part of me knew that real change sometimes requires uncomfortable truth. I agreed to the interview. I told the reporter everything, including the company name. The article ran the following month as part of a series on workplace culture. It featured stories from 6 former Brightline employees, including me. The response was immediate. Brightline's PR team released a statement about their commitment to employee well-being and launched an internal review. Their Glassdoor ratings plummeted as more people felt emboldened to share honest reviews. 3 months later, the company announced a leadership restructuring. Victoria was pursuing other opportunities. They hired a chief people officer and implemented new policies around work-life balance and feedback. Too little, too late for those of us who had suffered there, but maybe a better future for current employees. My podcast continued to grow. I wrote a book about workplace advocacy that became a bestseller in the business category. I was invited to speak at conferences, small local events at first, then bigger stages. Last year, I gave a keynote address at the Women in Business Global Summit in London. Standing on that stage, looking out at 2,000 faces, I thought about that Tuesday meeting when I finally found my voice. How terrified I had been. How certain I was that I had ruined everything. Instead, it had been just the beginning. 2 weeks ago, on the 3rd anniversary of my firing, I received a LinkedIn message. My heart skipped when I saw the name, Victoria Reynolds. "Maya, I've been following your success from afar. Your podcast and book have made an impact, even on people like me who should have known better. I've done a lot of reflecting on my leadership style and the culture I created at Brightline. I was wrong. I was part of a system that valued results over people, and I perpetuated it. I'm sorry for how I treated you and the team. I've learned a lot, and I'm trying to do better in my current role. If you're ever open to it, I'd appreciate the chance to talk, maybe even on your podcast, to share my perspective and the lessons I've learned. No pressure. Just know that your voice made a difference, even to the person who tried to silence it." I stared at the message for a long time. 3 years ago, I would have killed for this apology. I would have seen it as validation, proof that I had been right all along. Now I wasn't sure what to feel. Part of me was glad she had reflected and changed. Another part remembered the damage done, not just to me but to dozens of others who had passed through those office doors. I closed the message without replying. Maybe someday I would be ready for that conversation. Maybe not. The important thing was that I now had the choice. Last night, I recorded the 156th episode of my podcast. The topic was finding your voice in a world that wants you quiet. As I spoke into the microphone in my now professional home studio, I thought about how far I'd come from that makeshift closet setup. "My name is Maya Sanders," I said into the microphone, "and 3 years ago I was fired for speaking up about a toxic workplace. It was the best thing that ever happened to me. And I meant every word. Thank you for listening. Please help this channel grow by subscribing, like this video, and share with your loved ones.